Just so you know, we'll get those. We'll get those done.
I snuck a snip. It's really good.
It's all right. Don't give it away. You got this part of the video. You caught the live unedited edition. Home Gadget Geeks, Thursday, April 9th, 2020. If you're joining us for the very first time, here's the good news. We do this every Thursday. We'd love to have you back. So if you came in through the Unraid community on the community forums that Spencer posted out there this week, by the way, thank you, Spencer, for the work that you did to promote us this week. I appreciate that greatly. You now have you get the #1 vendor award for Home Gadget Geeks of promotion. From here on out, if anybody asks, hey, how should I promote this thing? Look at these guys. So anyway, Spencer, thanks for your work. But if you're joining us for the very first time, we are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv/live. It's really kind of a community. We're not a how-to. We're more of a conversation podcast. We just kind of spend some time talking through this. We'll go an hour and 20 minutes or so, maybe a little bit longer. And we're here for the duration. So we appreciate you for coming out tonight. If you're returning, I see Joe and Mark. Spencer, thanks for jumping in the chat room as well. I see Ron, Nathaniel, Ken, Joe, the regulars out there. Thanks to the regulars as well. A new segment we've been working on, of course, is our beer pouring segment. And big thanks to Andy Coffee, who sent us a couple beers from Open Road Brewery. Mike, tonight I think we're working on Camp Out.
Yep.
We're gonna get that open. Mike, you've sipped it a little bit while I'm pouring.
I couldn't wait.
Well, take a sip.
Okay, I'll take a sip.
Yeah, take a sip, and then I'll pour it. So their Camp Out, it's kind of a creamy light ale is what it says. I'll read the specs here in a second. Mike's tasting it. What do you think, Mike? Give us some.
Okay, so I'm glad you're pouring because I didn't pour. So I go into a Camp Out. I think of a creamy ale. I think of a stout. I think of a dark beer.
Oh, yeah.
So I went in expecting that. I got something totally different. I got a creamy light beer with no bite like a stout. So it's probably, man, one of the smoothest creamy beers I've had. Take a sip and let me know what you think.
So 5%, I'll read the stats, 5%, 17 IBUs. It says a very light-bodied ale and crisp. So, I've been drinking a lot of course, I'm a big Blue Moon fan. And then Daybreaker is a new one from Belgium. And I've been liking that one. Give it a taste. Yeah. Pretty good.
It doesn't have a bite. It's like super smooth. You expect it to have that. It's like it starts out like a stout, and then it doesn't have that end taste to it.
Summery, kind of summery.
Yeah.
So, John, do you like summer beers? Are you a heavy beer guy? IPAs? Where do you land in the spectrum?
I definitely prefer stouts. I love porters. Vanilla porters are awesome.
See, that's what I thought this was going to be, and so that's why I went in thinking, and it wasn't that. I was like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
You're going in expecting a porter. You come out with a feeling of an IPA. Yeah, you're a little bit confused from that, yeah?
Yeah, no, not very bitter on this.
Not bitter at all. Not hoppy, I wouldn't say. No. Crisp is a good way to put it.
Good foam. So, Andy, thanks for sending these out. Wayland, Michigan is where they're from. And hopefully during this time, you're enjoying something crisp or whatever it is. I know it's difficult to get it. It's getting harder and harder to find places where you can go pick it up. I know a lot of beer places are kind of delivering, or you can get curbside, but we thank Andy for sending that to us. If you want to send us your beer pick, you can do that. Send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. I will give you my address and you can ship it. Not the most cost-effective way to get beers, but we do appreciate it when you do that.
We really appreciate it. I'll say I doubly appreciate it.
So, Andy, thanks.
Okay, this has been hard for me, Jim. I've had a 6-pack of really good beer in my fridge that you've been telling me you got to wait and drink once a week with me. It's been the hardest part. This stuff is so good.
We'll preview next week. We'll do their Kilt Lifter. I like that. I like the name. That one, right?
Yeah.
Kilt Lifter. So
intrigued.
that is a whiskey Irish red, which sounds good. They sent us a Drifter. That's just a brown ale, and then we're saving. We're going to save the mead. They have a Missy Margarita that we'll save.
I have never had a single mead, so I'm very excited for that. I'm saving it.
My son is wanting to do meads, so we'll see when he gets out of the military and gets back into the country. He's been extended where he's at, and we'll see if he makes it back yet this year. Type deal. The Marines are not moving very many people around. Tony, beer guy at all?
No, man, I'm a cheap date.
Oh, all right. I like
diet soda, diet sun drop.
All right.
But if I do drink once in a while, it might be a margarita whiskey sour, but like one beer, and I'm under the table, man.
Yeah.
People laugh about that. I just can't do it.
Me too, Tony. Don't worry about it. I'm a lightweight too. I can't really handle anything that's too strong.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, though, at some point, so our CEO is actually a closet brewer. Like, he does it in his house. At least he used to. He hasn't done it in a while. But maybe at one point, if he makes another batch, we're going to have to send some out to you guys.
No, I'm down for that.
We'll take it.
Yeah, we've been having a happy hour, virtual happy hours at my work. And my wife and I have been huge into Moscow mules lately. Like, the amount of Moscow mules we've had in the past 4 weeks is probably... Like, I probably shouldn't talk about it, but oh man, they're just so, and especially when you have the copper mug, you just, it's so good. You can't beat just a good old Moscow mule.
We had, we made old fashions the other night, and we made them with Jefferson's Ocean, which is a really expensive, very
I was going to say, yeah.
Very, very good. Sarah is like, and I'd already had a couple drinks. So it's like, you want to make one with Ocean? And of course I said yes. And, so
it was the first drink you're supposed to have, right? Not the last drink you're supposed to have.
It was so good. It was so good. Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but I think, so with the exception of Tony, this COVID, America's response to COVID is drinking, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody I talk to is like it's the food's not the problem. We think about calories, it's all the alcohol.
Oh, well, one thing people don't think about, I know some people in law enforcement, the amount of domestic abuse calls they're getting off the chart.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of things that can bring me calories in my house. Like, there are things long lost things in the cupboard that I haven't looked at in months. It's hard to replace alcohol, right? There's not many things that can replace that. So I can probably find some food around here somewhere.
Yeah.
When you run out of alcohol, you're out of alcohol.
No, it's like, I'm going to take these hops and I'm going to set them in the back of the garage.
These grapes my boys eat. I've heard if I hold these long enough, they turn into alcohol. Is that true? How long does that take?
Oh my gosh.
We saw that joke, with the refrigerators open. It says you're not hungry, you're bored. Shut the door.
Exactly. I was telling my wife. Well, by the way, if you're joining us for the first time, we're just in a little bit of pre-show. We're going to get started here in just a second. When are these guys going to talk about Unraid? It's coming. Just hang tight for 1 second. But my wife said to me, "Could you imagine if this had happened to us 10 years ago?" And I had 5 at home 10 years ago, and and it would have been 20, 18, 16, 14, and 12. No, 12 and 10. Yikes. Like, I could not imagine the food we would have gone through. And anyways,
what they say right now, no one's going to downvote a raise for our teachers.
I hope so. I hope so.
Kidding, Tony. I'm like, man, I thought our daycare was expensive. They deserve double. I'll pay them whatever they want right now if they open back up. Whatever they need. Oh, man, it's crazy.
Andy, are you in the chat room? I just want to see Andy Coffee. Are you out there? Okay. Well, thank you for coming out tonight. Appreciate you guys. If you're new in the chat room, we have the best chat room on the internet. So if you want to ask any questions, you can do that. I think I have the smartest people for whatever reason. All the smart ones listen to this show. So we appreciate you guys. And one of them is right over there. His name is Tony, and he's pretty good on Twitter. Like, okay, hold on. Before we get started.
The world needs to know.
Do you have like a Twitter consultant, or do you have, how do you do it? Because your tweets, they're not just informative. They're fun. They're incredible. How do you do this? Tell us the secret.
See, Jim, the difference is you have Mike. Here, I'm in a tech desert. So the only way I, kind of learn stuff is on the internet and so forth. I have no one to kind of hang out and do those kind of things.
So it's all you. You must have a very curated news feed, though, because what I've noticed about your tweets is that they're very diverse in the source. So, like, the source of all the tech news and everything is like, it's not just like you're following The Verge and tweeting everything they do. You're following like every single tech site, very consolidated. You must have a really good RSS feed, something.
Well, it's kind of a little bit of everything. But the one thing I try to do is mainly make it positive, because in the South, we say you don't talk about religion, politics, or sports with someone you don't know.
It's pretty valid advice,
keep it neutral, positive, and I'm like, would I want to read that story that I'm rereferencing or see that picture? And that's the kind of the way I look at it.
What's your Twitter handle?
AW Rayner.
AW Rayner. So you're the most entertaining Twitter account that I follow. I think, how does he come up with that stuff? That's so freaking smart. So pretty good. John, are you on Twitter much?
I'm not. Spencer is. Spencer
Okay.
is our community manager, and he
That
handles.
doesn't mean you can't be on it.
You know what? I've dipped my toes in the water of social media, and honestly, it was a little cold for me. So
All right.
I'm not sure.
I like
I might get back into it one day, but like my wife manages our Facebook, and I don't mess with it. I just, I have enough real media. I don't need social media.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Right on. Right
Yeah.
on. No. I'll honor that.
You're
I'll
like
honor
me,
it.
and there's some people I know from the tech universe here, but their Twitter feeds are a little too divisive. Unfollow, mute them.
Yeah.
Mute them. I'll listen to their podcast, but they get too far the other way, I'm gone.
Andrew says religion, politics, sports, or operating systems. Those are the things.
Or operating system.
Or game consoles. That's another big one. You can't
No
talk
kidding.
about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We can
Well,
all
that
agree
would
that the new
probably-
Xbox is going to blow the new PS5 out of the water or whatever.
Oh,
About it.
I'll tell you what. I'm not on social media, but I'm not even going to dip my toes into giving you a response to that because
Yeah, I know, because we'll just trigger everyone.
Oh!
Yeah, we'll trigger the entire world.
Ron says one day he's going to figure out a way to get us some Canadian beer. Ron, I'll look forward to that day. Let's just.
Is that just maple syrup with some alcohol in it?
That sounds good to me. I mean,
Yeah, I'm down. Either
Are you
way,
being
I'm
a
just saying.
nationalist right now? Is that
I
what you're
can't see
doing?
it in politics. I violated one of the rules that Tony just taught us. So
Come on.
No,
The Cana-
they have reservoirs of maple syrup the way we have of oil. Are you kidding me?
yeah,
It's not all maple syrup. They play hockey too.
No.
two
but
things
I
I'm
mean,
a fan of. I got a hockey stick. Right, I
Oh, there
can't
was a
point on
famous
camera.
story.
Jeez, right there.
somebody broke in and stole part of their reserve.
All right, let's get this thing started. We appreciate you guys coming out. Let me do this thing. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks show number 440, recorded on April 9th, 2020. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here. Mike, a super windy Bellevue, Nebraska.
No kidding.
Holy cow. Today, something's coming in. I think they're talking snow for Easter here, right? I mean,
We literally went from snow to like 70-degree days, and now apparently snow again. I don't know how all that comes together, but
it's just
that's Nebraska for you. If you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes.
It's exactly right. Of course, we'll post the show with world-class show notes, and you'll want to catch these show notes. There'll be some good ones out there at theaverageguy.tv. Don't forget, you can also join us live on our mobile app and streaming both on Android and iPhone. Maybe you just want to listen to us. I mean, you can find us in any podcast app too, but if you just want to listen to us, and actually this is the best way if you want to listen live into the stream, just put it on your phone. You never know when you're going to need it. Just like the Bud Light that I have in case of an emergency. You never know when you're going to need it. So get that downloaded, homegadgetgeeks.com. I didn't even, Mike, I should have had the prop.
Yeah,
Darn
I'm
it.
surprised
Hold
you didn't.
Hold on. It's in the
You've taken over my role
It's
of
in the
having really
emergency
cheap beer on the
it's in
show.
the-
So
It's in the emergency beer fridge right there. In case of emergency.
again, air quotes,
Open.
emergency beer fridge. It's his
Open.
go-to beer fridge, guys. Don't let him fool you.
Break glass. And of course, you can download the app, homegadgetgeeks.com. We've been, you're probably listening to this. Maybe some of you are listening to us because you heard of this podcast through the Unraid forums. Thanks to Spencer, who spent a bunch of time promoting us this week. But John Panozzo is back with us. He was here about a year ago, John. I want to say, I think is around a year ago. Does that sound right?
Yeah, about a year.
Yeah, and we just had the best time with you. Well, let me just say that was super fun. And I think I asked you at the time, if I asked back, you'd say, what'd you say? And you'd say yes. And so we did. And so welcome back to Home Gadget Geeks.
Absolutely. I had a blast last time as well. Looking forward to tonight.
Good to have you. Above him and over this way on my side is, of course, Tony Rayner. Tony is a champion. Tony, like, I got to say this. I'm just going to say it publicly because you're so good. You are the Home Gadget Geeks champion in social and around the world. Like, nobody promotes us on a consistent basis and enjoys what we do more than you. So, Tony, thanks and welcome to Home Gadget Geeks.
Oh, thanks.
Good to have you on, and good to be here. We're going to talk some Unraid, and of course, John, I think it's kind of hard to get around the fact that in April 2020, we're in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic crisis going on around the world. It's affecting everybody. This has been one of the weird things about this pandemic, and I guess that's what the word pandemic means, but is that everybody's experiencing the same thing kind of at the same time. Now, that's not totally true, right? It's going in waves, but for the most part, especially here in the West and in Europe, we're all kind of going through this thing together, which is really kind of odd as we think about what's going on. You guys are at Unraid, you guys are kind of distributed around. How is it affecting you guys? And is it having much an effect on your workload or your developers or the community? Give us an update.
Not too much. We do have one of our new hires that is actually stuck in Vietnam right now because he can't get back into the country. And was touring the world and checking out all these different countries. And then this happened. And I'm like, you couldn't have picked a worse time to go on a world tour. You really couldn't have. Like any time in the last 10 years and probably any time in the next 10 years, you're going to be fine. This year, that sucks. But thankfully, he's a remote worker. He's able to do what he needs to do, and he's in a beautiful place. Vietnam's absolutely gorgeous. Some of the pictures he's shown us is just breathtaking. But from a company standpoint, not too bad. Honestly, I think that a good majority of the people that use Unraid are techies that are already working from home, and if anything, this gives them more time to dink around with their servers and try to get things more optimized. So, we're really not seeing a huge impact to the business as far as sales go or anything like that. But yeah, our community is definitely affected just like everybody else in the world. And we've got plenty of folks out there that either are infected or know someone that's infected. So it's a scary time. But thankfully, one of our community developers, a guy that goes by the handle of Squid. Hi, Andrew. He has done an amazing job of promoting the use of two really awesome applications built into Unraid that are Docker containers, actually, that help with finding a cure, finding a vaccine. Basically, if you guys are familiar with SETI at Home, Folding at Home, Boink, any of those types of apps, all it is a research project where your computer just downloads tons of these jobs locally, and then it treats this giant mesh network of computers as a giant supercomputer, figuring out and rendering these proteins and 3D models so that researchers, scientists, doctors can analyze it and try to figure out a way to beat this thing. So he promoted it pretty aggressively. It's like if you go to our community apps plugin, it's the first two containers you'll see on the top there. We pushed out a big notice to everybody so that they could see it. And there's just tons of people in the Unraid community that are helping. So for everyone out there that's doing that, thank you. And if you're not, go into community apps right now, download those containers and help find the cure. Let's do it.
If you're not a part of the community and you're joining us, maybe, like I said, maybe you came in through the announcement on the forums there. We do have a Home Gadget Geeks team. So if you want to join that, 243-306 Folding at Home. 243-306 gets you in the team. I think, Mike, since last week and a little bit later in the show, maybe I'll show the stats on that. I think we picked up 5 or 6 or 7 last week in there. I think I counted 19 or something along those lines in that group.
Yeah, 19. And man, some of our top users are like killing it too. We added a bunch of people, and you can tell people are adding in like, oh, hey, I got an extra GPU over here. I got an extra CPU over here. Cause all of a sudden certain people are making like drastic jumps in the standings as we go. It's been a lot, like it's a fun little race. And we have a conversation going over in Discord. And I think every morning everyone's checking in with, okay, I got 2 GPUs running. I got 3 or 4, and we're all having some friendly competition. So yeah, if you haven't joined, I'm actually running the Folding at Home Docker container on my Unraid. I'm actually monitoring it. The great part, if you guys don't know, is you can monitor it from a different computer. So you can use the Folding at Home app if you have it set on a different computer. So I run it on this rig right now because I have a more powerful GPU here. So I run it here and on Unraid, and I'm monitoring both from the advanced view of Folding at Home. So I can go and check anytime I want how my Unraid box is doing currently. If you guys are just in it for the fun, it's got 5 hours and 41 minutes left for a job that's going to get me 132,000 credits. I just run one GPU. I run a 1060 on the Unraid box. Is what I run with it. So
not that we're competitive at all about
Not that we're competitive at all. I'm just letting you know that's what we're working with over here.
No, it's pretty great. SPX Labs in the chat says, we lost John. We'll get him back here in a second. SPX Labs says can't leave the Unraid folding team. No worries, SPX. You can stay with it. We don't really care if you're on our. I mean, we do. We'd love to have you on our team, but we just want you doing it.
Yeah, so we just want everyone on it. Who cares what team you're on? We just do it as a team because a lot of our members hadn't joined it at all. But we totally get that Unraid has their own team, that a bunch of different YouTube. So just get on it and be on it, and that's the main.
Tony, have you jumped in on this thing yet? Have you decided to join us in this space?
No, if you see my Twitter feed, I have a never-ending list of honeydew projects, man.
All right. Well, we'll let you off the hook on that one. John, are you familiar with the Unraid team? Is it pretty large? Do you track that at all for this?
Huge. I actually sent in the private chat here links to both our Folding at Home and the Boink teams that we have. Yeah, they're They're pretty big.
Yeah.
They're pretty big. And Eric, one of our developers, who also happens to be, I guess, our Midwest data center in his basement, has just a ton of servers and multiple Threadripper rigs that are just. I mean, his house. He doesn't even have to turn the heater on in his house. Let's just put it that way. I mean, he's just pumping out the cycles on this thing. So we've got a ton of people, and we're very appreciative of everybody that's helping with this thing.
Yeah, no pressure to move. We don't want you to. We're just excited about that going on. I really kind of hope, John, that we find something that's helpful, and then I'm kind of hoping that comes back through. Tony, do you think if they do find something on that, and it would come back through with a blog post or something? Would you think that might happen?
Yeah, I think there's already, like, say, some experimental vaccines for Corona out there already.
Yeah.
And,
Go ahead.
Oh, now say, anywhere there's money to be made. I did pharmaceutical research for 10 years. Let me tell you.
Yeah. Well, I just hope, like John Biggs, who was talking to me, he's like, hey, I sure hope we hear about, like, if this does help. I think it'd be super great to hear. I know they'd be afraid to say something because then, maybe because, before this took off with COVID, I mean, they were trying to do cancer research with it, with Parkinson's, cancer, Parkinson's, some of those kinds. And, they were like, I don't know, 20,000, 40,000 something. And it went to like 400,000 when COVID came up. So anyways, we hope we hear about it. And so John, thanks for doing that. If folks, so they're new to Unraid, maybe they're setting up an Unraid server, they just go to, where do they go to get that Docker to be able to do this?
So if you've already got the plugin called Community Apps installed on your server, you just need to click on that Apps tab, and those containers are going to be promoted right at the top. If you don't have it, just go to Google, type Community Apps Unraid, and it's the very first search result. You'll find the plugin and how to install it. It's very simple.
Yeah, that's a sweet little app on there, because it kind of puts everything together for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's also kind of a testament to how we as a company kind of grow the product, because that wasn't even originally designed by us. That is the work of a guy in the community by the name of Squid, Andrew, and he's an awesome guy. And the way we built Docker support into Unraid originally, to be quite honest, was not built with an app store in mind. It was more of, you add these template repos, and it's kind of complicated, and it didn't have like the friendly app store interface to it, but it was built in such a way that we knew we could do that eventually. Well, before we even get a chance to write a line of code of it, this guy Squid comes out and says, I got it, guys. And he's been maintaining it ever since. And he's just so important to us, because every app that someone wants to add in there, he's reviewing it, he's going through, making sure, doing due diligence against it, making sure it's listed correctly, making sure it's being supported correctly. So it's one thing to just say, hey, this is just an aggregate of all the Docker containers out there, but this is somebody who's actually taking the time to curate that and present it in a way and make it really easy for people to take advantage of. So Squid, I love you, brother. You're good, man.
Oh, no. I agree. I didn't know that. Okay, so Squid, I've seen him in the forums all the time, and I didn't know he was the one who built it. But here's what I tell you, from a new user perspective, someone who installed Unraid, the thing I love about community applications is it let me get into Docker in a very friendly way. I had never built a Docker container. I had never done any of that. But ever since I've done that, I'm like, okay, that got me, that dipped my toes in the water. And then I started experimenting. It gave me the experience I needed and the confidence, to kind of go out and do it on my own. So, man, applaud Squid for putting that in there, because that really let me dive into Docker deeper than I ever would have if I had never had just an intro to it. But I've really, actually, to be honest, I've never had to for Unraid, because they're all there. All the best things you need are in CA. I would call it an essential first step to installing Unraid, is getting community applications up and running.
Couldn't agree more, Mike.
Spencer says about 4,000 spread across the teams. And then Michael says he uses downtime to build an Unraid server. So nice job, Michael, on that, running both Folding at Home and the Rosetta. By the way, I should just say, too, there are Windows apps available. I've got it running. My GPUs are in other machines. They're not in my Unraid server. So my Unraid server is not very powerful. For me, it was better to put a Windows, install it on Windows boxes, get it running on those 4 GPUs that I have in my Windows boxes, and make them available that way. World Community Grid has also announced a COVID project, so that's awesome. SPX says Community Apps is absolutely amazing, and it's a must-have, and I agree. Oh, and by the way, Andrew says he's blushing.
That's Squid. That's
Squid
right there. That's Squid. Andrew Z is Squid.
We have Squid out here. That's fantastic.
I'm glad you're watching, buddy. You're the
Super
man.
cool. Well, we appreciate the community here on Home Gadget Geeks. We're kind of all about the community. Really, we've been together. If you're new to us, we've been together, 10, 11, 12 years. Started this home server show. So we all started kind of in this home server environment. Dave McCabe, who's now doing Reset. And over the last decade, have all just kind of hung out together. And I think we're the best community in the world and a great place to hang out. Everybody's kind to one another. So if you came in on that and you need a community to join, we're no pressure here. You're not going to get anything. We just hang out, and it's a lot of fun to be together. So thanks for joining us tonight.
You're selling
John,
yourself short, Jim. You get entertainment. You get entertainment.
You do.
It's free entertainment.
And great beer picks. I just have probably one of the best parts of our show. Come for the pre-show and get the beer picks at least.
Yeah, just come out early. And if you want to send us a beer, you can do the same thing as well. Jim at theaverageguy.tv.
I was saying that without saying that. Yeah.
John, let's catch up with you and what's going on. We had you on about a year ago. Kind of want to ask you, since the last time we had you here, kind of catch us up with what have you guys been doing? What are you excited about? What do you want to talk about as far as where you've been since then? And then we'll look at future stuff here in another question.
Sure. I mean, the biggest thing to really talk about as far as where things have been in the last year is how much we've grown as a business. I mean, we've really expanded pretty dramatically. I mean, just a few years ago, we were really 3 guys and 1 contractor remote, and that was it. We've expanded pretty dramatically. We have a full-time staff of 5 now, and we've expanded the number of contractors pretty dramatically. In fact, after tonight's call, I have another call with the team globally at 9:00. I have to do that because we got people in Australia that are dialing in, people in Vietnam that are dialing in, and people stateside. So it's just awesome to see the team continue to grow, because as we grow, it just lets us take on more projects and get more detailed in the product itself.
Has you kind of alluded to this a second ago with this COVID and with people having more time? Has it changed? Like, are you seeing more community involvement just as people? Because like I know I'm more involved in our Discord group because I sit here and I can be more involved in it. Whereas before I didn't at work, I wouldn't do Discord there just because it was kind of distracting. It's still distracting here, but I'm doing it more because I'm here. Are you seeing any of those, even if it's just a little bit? Are you seeing some changes in participation?
You know what? Honestly, that's something we should probably look into, is see how much our forum activity has changed. I mean, from a sales standpoint, our business is on the same trajectory, so we haven't seen any impact, negative or positive there. It's just been the same, which is fine. It's great. But from a forum participation standpoint, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot more people participating, creating new topics, asking for help to configure different applications, things like that, because that's what else are you going to do? You know, there's only so many times you can watch the same TV show on Netflix before you're like, I want to stream something from the server I built. So, yeah.
Do you find that during times like this, let's go back as we think about your company and some of the things you're doing. Did you guys have to change anything, communication, any of those kinds of things, or because the way the community is already kind of distributed, is it kind of just a business as usual? It's business as usual, really, for us. I mean, we've nothing's really changed operationally day to day. Nothing's really changed with how we interact with people or provide support to people. You know, I used to go to our CTO's house once a week to work on different projects and stuff. Obviously not doing that right now because we're all just staying at home. But, you know, VPNs are a wonderful thing. And so we can get remoted into wherever we need to be and get whatever work we need to get done. So, and thankfully, I'll show you a fun little gadget that's going to make you guys geek out a little bit. So I just picked this up actually from our CTO today. So anybody that's wondering what this is actually a test dev workstation or test dev rig. So basically it's a little Celeron processor, believe it or not, has an NVMe port on the bottom of it, so you can even slide an NVMe. Has support for, looks like, 2 SATA connections, and provides SATA power with no PSU. No, like the PSU is, where is it? It looks like an old laptop charger. So we have a handful of folks that we need to provide development machines to, and this is how we do it. We build these little boxes. Well, Eric builds these little boxes for us. You know, again, a little 4-core Celeron, but it's more than enough to run Unraid. And I love this thing. This is so much fun. It's almost reminds me of like a Raspberry Pi, but a full-blown Intel x86 version of it.
Even dual NIC too on there on that tiny little board.
Right?
Look at that.
Mean, come on.
USB 3 dual NIC. I mean, that's the works on a tiny little board.
And DisplayPort. How about that?
That's more than my gaming rig motherboard has, to be
Right?
honest.
So
All
I
right,
mean,
now
I don't
you
even need
can't
a
show
case
that
for
to
this
us,
thing.
John. Can we buy those? I mean, is that commercially available somewhere?
Yeah,
or
yeah.
is
I'll tell you
it-
what. I'll have to get the link from Eric, and
Okay.
you guys can maybe talk about it on the next podcast, so I can tell you what you
Yeah.
actually have to buy. But this is just a standard PC, so it just boots up like a standard PC. Throw the Unraid stick in there, load it up, you're good to go. I mean, granted, this is not a NAS by most people's standard. You only have 2 hard drive connections, but if you just want a little test dev rig and want something to play around with and not mess around with your production systems, this is great.
Oh,
But you know what?
Oh.
There is a use case for that. I'll use my parents as an example. I have them set up with just like a 2-bay Synology because they don't need
There you
like
go.
anything. Like they really don't. But I have so many things that they've seen in my house that I run, certain Docker containers, things. I'm like, I just need something very simple for you. That right there is the perfect use case for someone that just really, they just need a dual, 2 8-terabyte hard drives, in RAID, and they're fine. Or not in RAID, sorry, in Unraid, and they're good, right?
Yeah,
Ross says, looks like
absolutely.
it'd be a great firewall. And
That's a very good point. Also, a great
do you-
firewall. You could
do you
run
know how much?
a
John?
VM on there and run PFSense.
I'm finding out right now. I'm actually
Okay.
messaging Eric while we're talking, and I don't have. I should have had more info for you. If I'm going to
Dude.
tease with a gadget, I better be able to know what it is, right?
Can't
It's
come on a
in the
gadget
show title. Come on, John. Home Gadget Geeks. If you bring
There
a
you go.
gadget on, we're gonna geek out on it for a little bit.
Don't worry, Eric will probably message me back in a minute here, and I'll tell you what it is.
Yeah, that's a good question, John. I have a couple of nooks just sitting around, So this, I think I looked into a little bit. You just run it from a stick, insert it into the nook and a couple of external hard drives. You're good to go.
Yeah, and it is an Odroid, an H2. I think somebody in the who guessed it. Somebody guessed it in here. I thought I saw somebody in the chat say H2, but maybe I'm wrong.
I don't see it in there yet.
In the private chat, in the private chat, I pasted a link to it in the private chat.
There you go. Yeah,
The inventory is hard
okay.
to come by, but it's about $111 for that little unit.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure, yes, there was somebody who asked a question if you can use the NVMe port if you're using both SATA ports. I believe so. I'll have to test that out later tonight because I'm going to be playing with this later. So I'll find out, but I'm pretty sure you can. I'm pretty sure you can use all 3.
Okay, I'm going to post this in the chat. We'll have it available in the show notes as well. If that last link, John, that you put in there, I think gets you there, right? At the
Hard kernel.
Yep.
Yep.
H2, right?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Perfect. $111.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. That's in there. So John, the last time you were on, I've tried Unraid a couple times. Mike Howard, who I think we had Mike on. Did we have Mike on, Tony, last time? Was you and Mike?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because remember, I was like, you can't have Unraid without Mike Howard. I had to call you out.
That's true. That's true. I was hoping maybe I'd forgot that part on purpose, but after the show I tried it and it struggled with it a little bit just to get all the hardware configurations right for me, and so I kind of let it sit for a while, and we didn't talk about it for a while, and then Uyghur came back because Uyghur is Uyghur, and he's like, God, you got to get on Unraid, and so I was like, all right, I'll give it another shot, and I have to say, like, the documentation's gotten better. When I say better, not that it was that bad before, but just as I think about kind of the average guy doing this, the tools to put all that stuff on a drive or on a thumb drive, and then it just boots right up, and then you're in, and then the community app support, and then all those pieces. I was up and running and doing a bunch of things on this server within an hour. It was crazy how good that setup experience has gotten. Has that kind of been something you guys been targeting? Even the dashboard was better than I remembered from the last time I was in. Have you guys been intentionally kind of targeting that setup experience?
Absolutely. And you're going to see that even more in the future. I mean, the thing with Unraid is that it is pretty simple to get started right now. You have to know what to do. Once you know what to do, the amount of time that it takes is really minimal. But we are going to be making some major improvements to that. We'll say a wizard is in the future, something that most applications have nowadays, that's going to make things a lot easier to configure. But nowadays, honestly, most people that go to set up their first system, they go pull up some YouTube video, and it might be Linus Sebastian, it might be somebody from
Space Invader 1.
Invader 1, right? Good old Ed.
He taught me everything I know about Unraid.
He is awesome. We have such a good relationship with Ed, and he's just such a smart and really great guy. And he honestly, I know that somebody had a question in the community about it. Well, I'll save for you to bring it up later, but I'll just say this: Ed is the best content creator when it comes to Unraid. I mean, he just does such a great job, and he figures out the most difficult stuff that we just wouldn't have had the time to figure out. So,
like running it on a Raspberry Pi, didn't he just put out a video this past week on how he kind of got it to run on a Pi? Like it wasn't even that people want to do that. It was just the proof of concept, and seeing his brain work and how he got that to work was just a super cool process. Just seeing his process, it sparks that creativity in all the rest of us Unraid users.
For sure.
Let's John, let's go right to that question since you brought it up. I think it was Shinta Saint in the forum said, my question is, will Unraid team ever consider a subscription service with video tutorials like Space Invader? I appreciate the work and are very grateful for it, but sometimes I feel I prefer to get guidance from the people that design the OS or individuals authorized by Unraid for the community to assist a noob, and that's a guy like me too, users who are getting more advanced Dockers or features set up more quickly. That's the question. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so a while ago, before Ed started really cranking out the content, he was always a member of the community and always trying to help out in any way that he can. But before that, we started putting videos up on our own YouTube channel on basic things like how to manage game libraries or how to set up a Windows 10 VM. And then we saw Ed, and we started asking ourselves, why are we wasting time creating content when this guy is so much better at it, so much faster at it, and digs into topics that we didn't even think about? So to be quite honest, I just don't see us needing to do that. We already work with Ed pretty closely and give him ideas on videos that we'd like to see him do. Or like, for example, we've got a new release that's coming out pretty soon here. I'm not going to spoil anything for him, but we kind of asked him ahead of time, hey, do you want to do something to kind of show this stuff off? And we're giving him early access to it. So quite honestly, I don't think we would try to outdo Ed at any point. I don't see us competing with him either.
Just bring him in house, right? And
I mean, we kind of
let him use the official logo so people know, like, hey, this is an official guy.
There you go.
Like almost
I'm fine with him. I'm fine with him using the Unraid logo. That's totally fine. I mean, like I said, he is a brilliant dude who's just really done a great job of pushing a lot of content out over a very short period of time, covering really detailed topics. I mean, stuff like how to run Unraid on a GPU or how to run a VM off of a GPU when you only have one in the system. I didn't even know how to do that for a while. And I put a video out and I'm like, that's awesome. So, I can't tell you how many times we get an email into support and the response is, check out this video, and it's back to Ed. So yeah, Space Invader 1, can't recommend him enough. I think that you're all back to Shinta. You're already on the right path. Follow Ed. He'll take you to the promised land.
Shinta also asked a question around licensing tiers. I'm on the basic tier. I jumped right on to get that. Any thoughts on future? Are you going to change those at all going forward?
All I can say is stay tuned. We're constantly looking at our business model and ways to change it to support a wider customer base. We have no delusions of grandeur here, but at the same time, we want to make things easier for people. What I can promise you and what I can definitively say is that we'll never remove features or benefits from existing customers. So you paid for a license, you paid for certain benefits, you're always going to get those benefits.
That's good to hear. That's super important in the space as well. Anything else in the year between the last time we had you on and now that you guys are super proud of?
I'd say the UI are the updates that we've made to our user interface and just some of the core functionality and the dashboard interface. I mean, where we were a year ago to today, it's night and day. And there's one of our contract guys, Magnus, has been phenomenal at giving us different UI concept, different ways to present things to the user. So you're going to continue to see that refinement as time goes on. But yeah, in the last year, I'd say that was probably one of the biggest things that we've been tweaking.
I'm sure I'm going to give away some information here, like maybe an IP address or something, but I don't really care. So it's internal; doesn't really matter. But when you talked about the UI, this is my my dashboard for the server. It's actually sitting on a shelf right up here, which is super cool. And I was able to repurpose a Core i3 540. I think 540. I think that's
right there on the screen. Yeah,
right there on the screen.
You can see it on the dashboard. I actually can't see it because it's too small in the look that I am. I guess I could look over here, but
sure.
Yeah, no, I have been super impressed with just the look. It's just clean. It's effective. It was really nice. And I think, when did this UI kind of come to be? I know you guys kind of upgrade, but this look and feel, how long has this been there?
You know what? Probably right after the last podcast is when we
Okay.
started pushing out the first iterations of changes to this. Like I said, once we started working with Magnus early on, he kind of threw this concept at us, and we were like, this is awesome. Like, it just looks great. It's well constructed. It's well laid out. It just made sense. So we've been just kind of tweaking it and adding more to it over time. But yeah, there was no one release that I think had all these UI updates in it.
And what I like about it is what you guys have taken is the dashboard view, that homepage of Unraid is exactly what it says it is. Like that dashboard, I don't have to leave that page very often. I can leave that page even up, even so much as like I'm monitoring my UPS and it even pulls in the UPS data. So it tells me how much power I'm pulling on the UPS, which is just plugged in via USB. I've got my interface in and out for the entire rig. Like it has absolutely everything I would need on that page. You don't need to click around. I think that's one of the biggest improvements is really just the things you guys have been adding. There were little plugins that I had before that I honestly don't even know if I should probably just uninstall, but I don't know if I need them, like temperature, right? Temperature of the CPU and the board, all these different things. I'd say I would agree with you. I think that has been the biggest improvement. I don't know if that's been the last year, 2 years, whatever it is, but every little iteration, it just gets better. And that one page, I rarely have to leave because I'm rarely making settings changes. I'm mostly just checking Plex usage, seeing, how the server's doing, when it's doing its backups and things like that.
Yeah, thank you for the feedback. I mean, we feel the exact same way. I mean, it's UI is really, really important. It has a lot to do with user experience. It has a lot to do with ease of use. And so putting everything in a single pane of glass that's really easy to kind of survey quickly, get the critical details. We do like little things make a big difference. Like when your CPUs are running really hot, we make it red. Like we highlight it when it's getting near max utilization, and that draws your eye to it faster. It's little things like that I think are actually really, really important, because if we didn't do that and your CPU's hitting 100%, your eye's not being drawn to anything on that massive dashboard. So those little features here and there really go a long way.
And even going back to how you guys have everything installed on a USB drive. So 2 nights ago, talk about being home and quarantine and tweaking. I totally messed up my network settings. Don't ask me what I did. I don't know. I was trying to add in an extra NIC and add in an extra subnet and all this stuff. And I have a Cisco switch and I messed something up. I booted it down. I pulled out the USB stick. I just deleted the network config and the network rules config, plugged it back in, fired it up, and we were good. Like back up and running, did the defaults like within 2 seconds. Being able to pull that out and edit those files within seconds on any other machine was flawless. And you just can't do that with many other OSs. You can't just pop out a USB thumb drive and plug it in a machine, make that change, and then plug it right back in. And the information on how to do that, the idea to pull it out and just delete those 2 files came from the forums. Like the forums are super active. So the whole combination of that. So I really like how it's installed on a thumbstick too. I think that's oftentimes overlooked. And some people even claim that's a bad thing. I've seen a lot of people like, oh, I don't like how it's installed on a thumbstick. Man, that's only saved me. It hasn't hurt me ever in the entire time I've been running Unraid.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be a horror story about a bad storage device, and somebody's like, "Oh, I lost my USB stick. It got
Back it up."
Right. Well, there's that, and we made it pretty easy to do that, but
super easy too. Yeah.
Here's the big thing, right? So a lot of people, when they talk about, "Oh, I'm not sure about putting it on a flash," the scenario where I might agree with that is when you're putting the box somewhere way out of arm's reach. So if you're hosting in a data center, okay, maybe I can maybe understand that a little bit better, because you really want that storage device to be super resilient. And that's why you want like a RAID 1 set for a server that's living in a data center. But a box that's living in your house that you can go to and physically touch whenever you want to, who cares? Yeah. I see it as more of a feature than a cost. Because if let's say that the OS was installed on hard drives and you wanted to do the same thing after you screwed your network settings, are you going to remove the hard drives from your server,
my rack,
to drop them in a dock attached to a Windows machine to edit a couple files, then plug? No, but a USB stick, absolutely.
Oh, it was drop dead easy, 100%. Yeah, and what I did say that. So if you guys don't know, if you click on your main settings and just click on your flash drive, there is a button that just says Flash Backup. Just click it and then put those files somewhere. Every so often, every time you make some big changes, just do that. And then you always have a backup of your flash drive, and you can redo the whole thing within seconds and have it back up and running. I agree. It's been a huge lifesaver.
You can pull on my ear in a minute here because I'm about to make that even easier for you. So we'll talk about that in a second when we get
if
to
that's automated, I will love you.
Okay,
it's
John,
even better than automated.
Why
Okay.
wait? You teased it, so let's jump ahead as we think.
Oh, let's wait 20 minutes. Nobody wants to hear about new features. Nobody wants to talk roadmap. Nobody cares about 6.9. Come on, let's talk
Now, wait
about
a minute.
coronavirus.
That's all I want to know about.
Kind of what I'm worried about. You said you had a call at 9, which means we got 15 minutes.
Okay, fair
right?
enough. Well,
Okay.
I'll tell you what. If those guys got to wait a few, they can chat without me. But here, I will give you some
Yeah, let's look forward a little bit.
Let's first talk about 6.9, and then we'll talk about beyond 6.9. So 6.9 is already very close to completion. We're in the betas right now. And the biggest thing that's coming in 6.9, this is unrelated to what Mike was just talking about, but the biggest thing coming in 6.9 that I am so excited about is multiple pools. So for the longest time, we've only had an array and a cache, and that's it. Now you're going to be able to create as many different pools as you want. And what's really important about that is that doesn't just apply to, okay, I want to run some VMs and I want them on dedicated storage. It also applies to shares. So let's say you have a media share and you're bringing in content constantly and you want to be able to cache that content to some SSDs or something as it's being written into the system. Okay, you can create a pool and assign it to just that share. So now let's say you have another share and that share represents your home surveillance. Maybe all your cameras are pumping in video streams, right? Well, now you want to have that go to a different storage pool for caching purposes than to the same one that's doing all of that media caching. So you can create multiple pools now. You can have them participate in shares by policy individually. This is the biggest thing that I think people are going to use this for, is to segment VMs so that you can have a dedicated pool of storage for virtual machines where write contention isn't causing performance problems in the VM when you're caching. So I'm super stoked about that. This has been something we've wanted to add for a while. And I got to say, in the testing that we're doing right now so far, it's working really well. So I'm very eager to get people's feedback on that.
That's huge. I would love to be able to write. So when I back up, I send certain storage from my Blue Iris box over to Unraid, and I do it to a share. Right now I have cache turned off because I don't want to take up all the I/O into that cache because that cache is running all my other Dockers. So I just have it go straight to disk. I would love to be able to use a cache for that, though. So those pools, just being able to separate those out, have one for Blue Iris, throw a bunch of SSDs in there, essentially just create a bunch of pools and not have to worry about them being affecting the other. Huge. Awesome.
Well, not only that, I'll give you another good use case for it. So nowadays you got a lot of motherboards that are shipping with these M.2 ports that support NVMe, but the max number of NVMe ports that you're going to get on any system is going to be rather limited. Like you're not going to get a motherboard that's got 24 NVMe ports on it, right? You can get maybe a SATA controller that's got that many ports, but not for NVMe. So what do you use NVMe for on an Unraid server? Well, for me, it's VM storage. That's like, to me, the no-brainer because it's high performance. It doesn't have to travel over the network, especially if you're doing anything like gaming VMs or stuff like that. So now you could say, all right, I'm going to create one pool and just use my NVMe devices for that pool and use that just for VM storage, and then separately have a SATA-based SSD pool where I don't need 1,000+ megabytes per second write speed. I don't need it for this. I just need it to be fast enough so that it's not saturating my array when I'm trying to watch a movie with new writes that are coming in and making problems for me. So I think that's going to be a really big one, is using different tiered storage for different purposes.
Huge.
When does that come out?
Soon.
Okay.
Very soon. The community has this wonderful habit of putting soon and then like a trademark next to it, because I don't know if you guys remember this company, but there was an old gaming company called 3D Realms, and they had this development mentality of when it's done, when they'd make games. Yeah. And that's kind of how our software development works. Like we try to stay on a very rigorous schedule, but if it ain't done, it ain't done. Yeah. And so we're not going to put out buggy code. We're not going to rush to hit a release date and potentially corrupt someone's data. Protecting customers' data is our number one priority at all times. So all I'll say is that we are very close to a release. I'm not going to give a date.
What would the upgrade for me going from 6.8 to 6.9?
I'm already upset with you, Jim, because when you showed your screen, you're not running the latest Unraid release. You're on 6.82. You're a whole 0.001 releases behind. I don't know how that happened.
You have him on the show, Jim. Come on, make sure it's updated.
It's all right. If he's only one dot release away, I'll forgive him.
I'm getting release shamed.
But no, your process to update is going to be super easy. You're just going to go to that Tools tab, go to Update OS, click Check for Updates, and when it becomes available, you'll just download it there. There's nothing special you're going to have to do, other than if you've already used all your SSDs to create a big pool. There's not going to be a way to quickly and easily break that up. So, when you create a storage aggregate with like ButterFS is what we use for our cache pool right now, you can deassign devices depending on how much free space you have. But here's what I'm going to say to anybody that out there that's worried about, I want to break up my pool to create multiple pools. If you're not sure about what to do, post in the forum. Go into general support, post in the forum, ask. We'll help you out.
And is that going to stay the same? Is ButterFS what you're still going to use for cache pools? Is that
For
still
now.
the same?
For now.
Okay.
Why? What do you?
No reason.
Oh, there's a reason.
Well, I would just say the only issues I have had with Unraid, and it could have been on my end, but it was literally the only thing I've ever, and I had it consistently, was in the event of having to hard shut down the Unraid box, user error, probably something I did. That cache pool never recovered. And luckily I ran the community applications back above my app data folder, and it was just a quick and easy, just throw it back on. I have actually removed the second drive just so I can run XFS on the SSD. I can hard shut that thing down all day now and no issues. Zero. So it was just interesting. I don't know what the cause was. Again, probably some on my side, but it's the only issue to date that I've ever had with Unraid is in a hard shutdown or an environment, something would just go wrong. The drives would get out of sync and it would just be unrecoverable. You couldn't do anything about it.
And did you try doing like a ButterFS scrub or anything like that?
Did the scrub, did all that stuff and nothing. Yeah. So again, that could have been on my side, one of my drives or something, but I also, now I have that, I pulled it out and like, well, it's a 500 gig SSD. I have it in the gaming rig and nothing's gone wrong with it. So it was just interesting. The issue there. So I didn't know if there were any plans to change that, if that's a common issue or just a very,
well, all I can say is that we are looking actively into ZFS.
Okay, that's what I was wondering at that.
Yeah, I knew what you were getting at. All right, I knew what you were getting at. I'm a smart guy.
I don't have the RAM though to support that, so I'm totally fine if you guys don't.
That's not true. That's not true. You have the RAM to support it. So first of all, let's just hammer this one out because I know there's another question that somebody wanted to ask about ECC.
Yeah,
Jim, do you have that question up?
Because I do. Yeah, I do. Let me bring it up. It said this: how important is ECC RAM for the Unraid software compared to ZFS? Does it make a significant, in all caps, significant difference the way the file systems are set up having ECC RAM for Unraid for the Unraid OS? Or will I have relatively the same protection using normal hardware that it doesn't support?
Okay, so clearly you're not going to have the same protection. So ECC is a hardware level feature that basically adds parity to RAM. That's all it's doing, right? It's checking to make sure that all the bits that are stored in a row are good. And if they're not, then it can do a check. It can run against the checksum and fix that bit. Now, why would that bit get flipped? Well, a cosmic ray may hit your memory chip at just the right angle and flip that bit. And now your data is corrupted. So is it, does data corruption happen to systems that don't have ECC memory? Sure. But data corruption can also happen to systems that do have ECC memory due to other reasons. So I question the value of ECC a lot for our users because again, most people that have a server in their home, it's not the same value proposition as, say, Netflix or Google or Amazon or Microsoft, who has tens of thousands of millions of people connecting to their servers every couple minutes. So what I would say is this: if you have cash to burn and money is not an object and you want to build a dedicated server and you want the highest level of redundancy and the highest level of protection, go for it, man. Knock your socks off. But if you're like the rest of us mere mortals out there that want to squeeze every penny of performance out of the money we put into our systems, the cost of ECC, the memory is not the issue. The cost of the memory is not the issue. The difference between an ECC memory chip and a non-ECC chip is negligible. I mean, it's not nothing, but it's negligible. But the cost of the server that you have to buy to support ECC is a dramatic price difference versus, say, desktop class components. So again, my view is this: if you're Netflix and you're looking at servers that are going to go in your data center, you start asking yourself, well, how much does it cost me for the server to go down? Like if a server crashes, if it's a hard crash, and somebody has to physically go there or toggle power or reboot or whatever, how much does it cost me in dollars and cents per minute to be down? Now, ask that to somebody who's building a server in their home, and most of them are going to go, nothing. Like it sucks when the server goes down. I don't want it to crash, but most people are going to be willing to fix that problem. And let's be fair here. There are numerous layers of error correction control built into hardware. Memory is just one area that happens. And there's plenty of other areas that things can go wrong in as well. So again, my general recommendation to people, when it comes to ECC, nothing requires ECC. That's a misnomer. Even FreeNAS and ZFS do not require ECC memory to function. They highly recommend it because they're worried that if something does go wrong and data does become corrupted and you're not using ECC memory, they want something to be able to say, well, that's the reason. You need to go get this. You need to be doing this. Our view is, yes, data corruption can occur. It's technically possible. The likelihood of it happening in such a way that you can't get back to any of your data and your system's down for a super long period is really, really minimal. So I'll tell you right now, I don't have any servers or any computers that I've ever bought myself that use ECC. I have a couple that have ECC that have been given to me for testing and whatnot, but that's it. So again, if you're putting it in a data center, it's a different scenario. Now, going back to your
I was going to say, go back to how do I have enough RAM for a ZFS system?
Right. So the amount of memory you need translates to performance. And that's part of the research we have to do, is figuring out, is there a threshold that we have to provide a recommendation for? But I don't think that with ZFS, like if you have a system that only has 4 gigs of RAM and a lot of storage, I don't think, and maybe somebody will correct me and say I'm wrong, but I don't think that it'll just not work. I think that if anything, it might have a performance impact, but it should be able to work within the confines of whatever performance restrictions you place on it.
Yeah, well, but I thought like the recommendation has always been like 1 gig of RAM for every terabyte of storage, right? Isn't that like roughly? So I have like 16 gigs of RAM in here for a 24 terabyte array of usable space. Add 8 onto that, 32, I guess, once you add in the parity drive, whatever. So I was always concerned I wouldn't have enough, but I guess if it's just a performance issue, if it's not a requirement of the system, I'd be super interested if we went to ZFS instead of ButterFS. At least just XFS has been fine for everything else. But just for that cache.
No, I hear you. I mean, it's weird. ButterFS is weird because like in our test rigs, I've never had my cache pool crap out on me. I've just never had it happen. And so, and I've got multiple systems that have both either HDDs or SSDs. I've done it with NVMe devices. It doesn't seem to matter for me. Now, I know there are people in the community that have had problems with it. And I don't know if that's a hardware specific problem that ButterFS just gets blamed for, or like in your case where it's a power outage and you know, protect yourself.
Every time it was, if it's a hard shutdown, that's the only time it ever happened. But it was every time. It was a very repeatable error. Yeah,
that's the part that's weird.
If I hard shut it down, I can expect. I did expect it, and sure enough, it would come up. None of the Dockers would show up. I'm like, oh yeah, my cache pool is done. Just pull it back up from CA backup, and I'd be back up and running. So that plugin from CA has been my number one recommendation for everyone. Is just might as well, especially if you're running your app data only on the cache pool. You know, you don't have any backup there, so you might as well run that app. So I mean, it hasn't been an issue because the fix is 10 minutes of my time. But,
right. And I'll tell you, like when it comes to ZFS, I mean, it is something that we've been asked about quite a bit. And we've had different thoughts about it over the years. And we're finally getting to that point where it's like, you know what? We see what's happening within Ubuntu from Canonical, and they're adding ZFS support to their Linux distribution. So it's starting to make us question, maybe we should be doing the same thing. It's something that has mainly been a licensing challenge. And I'm sure if you do any basic research on what Linus Torvalds had to say about it, you'll understand where we're coming from. But we might have some unique ways to overcome that. So, you know, all I can say is, again, stay tuned. I don't have any timelines for you at this point, but it is something that's on the development roadmap. So I can tell you it's not something that we're just, you know, shooting about. We're actually looking into it.
Interesting.
John Robb asked any SMB issues on 6.8.3. He saw a bunch of Reddit posts saying that SMB performance declined from the previous version.
And I would say that's probably somewhat anecdotal.
Okay.
I can't say that I've seen any major SMB performance issues. I wouldn't say that that's a known problem in our community right now.
Okay. I'm as a person, I'm running 6.8.3. I was transferring a bunch of files today from the main rig over and was full gigabit sharing them. So
Firejack out of the forums had asked a question kind of around backup. A long question. I'll kind of shorten it. One of the things he says that often stops me recommending Unraid is the less technically minded users is the lack of kind of a built-in easy to use backup tool that can be managed through the web interface. So does Unraid team have any plans for adding a more maybe easier to use backup solution?
So we'll dip our toes into talking about flash backup, and then we'll talk about backup as a bigger idea. Okay. So Mike talked about, hey, there's this wonderful button in the UI called flash backup. You just push it, it creates a zip file. Boom, you're off to the races. Wouldn't it be awesome if that same button just clicked itself automatically every time you made a change? Wouldn't it be even more awesome if that backup went to the cloud, so that if your flash died on you and you forgot to make that backup, or maybe you don't have another PC laying around to make a backup to, or maybe the PC that you did back it up to isn't in your house anymore, whatever. Now you can just go log in, download a zip file from the cloud, and that'll be the latest backup of your flash. So that is something that is coming. It's part of a set of new features that we plan to roll out known as My Servers. And flash backup, automated flash backup, is one of those features that we are working on. So it's going to make life a lot easier, because, you know, as great as that button is, I don't love it right now, only because you have to click it. And so you go make a change to the OS, you add a share, go back, click that button, right? It's just kind of a hassle, and I fully admit that. But it's something that we look to automate to a cloud target in the future, because it's relatively small. Right, with the amount of backup data that we're talking about on that flash is relatively small, and a lot of it can be deduplicated, right? Because if I've got the vast majority of the actual storage being used from the OS is flat files that are the same on everybody's stick. What's unique is what lives under that config directory. That's what's unique to you. So if we can just back that stuff up, it makes everybody's life a lot easier. It doesn't cost us a lot to provide that solution. I mean, it does. We have to provide cloud storage, but it's a lot less than talking about, let's say, backing up gobs of data from your array. So now we'll switch to that, and we'll talk about backups from the array. So the question that came up about us adding backup, that's a tough cookie to crack, man. That is a real tough cookie. There are so many software businesses out there that do nothing but backup. So it'd be kind of pounding our chest to be like, we're just going to add that as a feature to Unraid. Don't worry, guys. Like we'll take care of creating rolling backups and synthetic fulls and all the wonderful backup terms. That's really tough to do. So I'm not going to say that it's never going to happen. It's something that I would love to see us do at some point, but I can tell you right now, it's not on the short-term roadmap. What I would maybe more likely want to see is a partnership with another company that has a backup solution, and see if we can maybe create some more tight-knit integration there. But us creating a first-party backup offering, I just don't see that in the short term.
And I'll just throw in there for if that person is looking for a service to recommend, for me, it's been rock solid. Duplicati and backing up to Backblaze has been just rock solid. It runs on a schedule. It has never failed. Backblaze has been a good, really cheap provider for cloud storage. So from one of the hosts here, that's what I use, and it's been great.
That's awesome. Now, Duplicati, you're running that inside a Docker container, right?
Yep, running it from the CA, right? Like it's super easy. CA, download Duplicati, took 2 seconds to configure, plug in your credentials, tell it what shares you want to back up, do the schedule, and you're off to the races.
Wasn't that causing some problems with your bandwidth and in us podcasting? It was running at times.
I hadn't limited it. Yes.
Okay.
So do go into the web UI of Duplicati and make sure you limit the amount of upload it can do, because I had it just set to full tilt, and also my schedules were off, so it was running it during the show.
Come on, Uyghur. Jason asked the question, where's that flash backup located?
Is he talking about the button? I'm thinking he's probably talking about the button, and the button is, if you go to the main tab and you click on flash, like wherever your flash device is, the button will be very obvious once you click on flash. So it's on the flash device settings page. If you're asking for the cloud, where's it going in the cloud? I guess we haven't really finalized, but I'm pretty sure it's going to end up being an Amazon S3.
John, what else as we think things that you guys want to talk about? We're now officially overtime for you, so every minute you spend is your choice here.
I'm out. I'm just kidding. We can go a couple minutes.
Okay, good. Anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, let's talk about some other cool things that are coming in 6.9. A really big one that I'm super excited about might not be the most whiz-bang feature when you think about features, but it's actually pretty important from us from a global perspective, and that's support for language files. So for the longest time, Unraid's been entirely in English, which Okay. I mean, that's what we have to do. We're all English speakers. But we've had folks that have started requesting, hey, can we get Chinese language support? Can we get Dutch language support? Can we get Spanish language support? And it's tough to do that. It's tough to add that multilingual support to the product when you're trying to continue to add features. And now you have to think about how that's going to work from a language standpoint. So what we actually had was one of our community developers from the Netherlands said, this is actually a real problem, and I'm going to come up with a solution for it. And he did. And it's pretty ingenious. And it basically just adds the capability to upload these language files into Unraid. So what we're hoping is that as a result of adding support for this, that we see different people from the community that want to take the time to translate for us, we'll then make those files readily available so that people can download them. So just having the ability to translate the UI into whatever language we need is a huge feature. Another big one that I think anybody with VMs is going to really care about is improvements to how device stubbing is going to work. So for anybody that's passing through PCI devices to VMs, if you're doing a graphics card or a sound card, super simple. Don't have to stub anything. It just works out of the box. The moment that you want to pass through a device that we normally would load drivers for, that's when things become a little bit more difficult, because in order to pass through a device, you have to stub the device so that the drivers don't load. So the old way of doing that was modifying the syslinux configuration files, a little file that lives on the flash. And there's a page in the UI where you can go and modify it, but you have to know what to put in there. And there's a very specific string you had to put in there. So it's coming in 6.9, thanks again to another new community developer that we brought on, a guy named by the name of Skittles is what he goes by. He's actually re-engineered our system devices page to create checkboxes that you can then click so that you can stub those devices without having to know the vendor product ID, without having to drop the command line, without having to be worried about, well, what other devices are in that group. So, for example, if the device that you want to stub happens to be in a group with another device that, say, is the USB controller that Unraid's plugged into, well, then you can't stub that device. And if you did, you'd actually prevent your system from booting properly. So same thing goes with the SATA controller that's running the storage devices for the array. So there's a little bit of built-in protection there as well to prevent those kind of things from happening. So that's a pretty big one too.
So is that another reason why, like, let's say built-in NVIDIA driver support hasn't been a huge thing? Because if you had that instant support and it was going to be loaded by the OS, again, you'd have to stub it and before you pass through the VM.
You got it. And that's also, this was kind of so our plan is to eventually incorporate those drivers. So right now, I know there are two versions of Unraid that exist in the community. There's our release, and then there's the NVIDIA release, right? And it's maintained by a group named Linux Server IO. A gentleman that in the forum goes by CHBMB, also an awesome guy. Also, I believe a doctor.
Interesting.
I might be wrong on that one, but I'm pretty sure he's a doctor. And he's been maintaining this separate build, and every time we put out a new release, he's got to go and figure out, okay, I got to compile this new build and build all the NVIDIA drivers in there. And I'll admit, it's not a fun time for him, but he does it because he uses it, and there's tons of people in the community that have been using it. And in fact, if you're one of those folks that wants to use those containers to help fight COVID-19, one of the downsides with our build is that we don't include those drivers, so you can't offload to the GPU by default. You can offload to the CPU, but not the GPU. But if you're using his special build, then you can use both GPU and CPU resources. So eventually, we want to get away from him having to do that work without, creating a separate build. But we've been concerned that, okay, how many people are going to use a Docker container that's going to take advantage of CUDA cores, let's say, on an NVIDIA GPU, versus a guy that just wants to pass it through to a VM and use it for gaming? Yeah. And so it was really important to us that people that wanted to do that, which is a very popular feature, we wanted to make sure that was going to continue to work as easy as it was today. Yep. So what we're probably going to do going forward is we're going to bake those drivers in, and we may choose to automatically pre-stub all audio and graphics devices. And then if you want to remove them from the stub, you could do that. But either way, having a tool that made it super simple to do this was really important to us. And again, Skittles came through for us because this thing just works so much better than doing it the old-fashioned way. It's just not as fun.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I think really, unless you're running folding, Plex, or MB and need that hardware transcoding, there wasn't really a reason for a lot of people to need the NVIDIA drivers passed through the Docker. I'll just ask you, and you can be honest or you can pass, is it like frowned upon to, like, if I say in the community, like, I'm running that version with the NVIDIA drivers so I can do hardware transcoding for, like, I mean, if I'm using his build, is that bad compared to your guys' native build?
I mean, so Yes and no. I mean,
Okay.
from a supportability standpoint, like if you contacted support and said, I'm running this special build and I'm having a problem passing through my GPU, not me, because I'll be the one replying to that email. Okay.
Cool.
I'll be
the jackass from that podcast, by the way.
Yeah.
You were on.
I'll be the first one to say, hey, go boot up the regular version of Unraid and see if it works. Now, if it doesn't, that's where I'll provide support to you, because that's one of the advantages of how we actually build the platform. You know, for a while there were people asking us, hey, can you make it so that we can update the packages in Unraid separate from what you guys release? And there's a reason we don't want people to do that. And the main reason is supportability, because you know, building an OS is just like a recipe for making food. Like, you got to put a bunch of different ingredients in it, and then it's going to taste a certain way. But when people start messing with the ingredients, it might not taste the same. And now you might end up with problems that are only because you've tinkered with that configuration. So, you know, you look at any other normal or open source distribution of Linux that's out there and look in their forums, and there's just tons of people that have these weird, quirky little problems, and no one can figure it out because it's their build. It's their unique combination of kernel, software, and configuration. So, you know, we don't like it when folks kind of modify the build as a general principle. In this particular instance, we kind of provide some support to the guy that's building these builds. You know, once in a while he'll come in and say, I'm having a problem, and we'll try to give him some assistance, because we realize that there's a lot of people out there that want to use it. So out of all the modified builds of Unraid that you can run, the NVIDIA one, that's the one that I'd say is okay. But if you're running into a support issue and you're emailing me,
I'll be yeah.
So, but eventually that's not going to be a problem, because eventually we're going to load those drives.
I'll use the backup button on my other version, and I also have 2 USB sticks I can just plug in. And when I contact you, I'll plug in the real version.
There you go.
He'll have that box sold by the time. It doesn't matter.
No,
he sells everything.
Jim, let's talk about that. There should be some testament to the people of this community who know me for the last 5 years being on this show. I don't stick with anything for any period of time ever. Like, past 2 months, I've sold it. I get into mining. I'm done. I have stuck with Unraid for years now, because I tried FreeNAS, Synology, QNAP. Those are the 3 I tried before I found Unraid. And Unraid I have stuck with for years because it is, and I still enjoy tinkering with it just because it's fun. I love finding new apps I can add to it. I love finding new settings. Last time John was on, he gave us some tweaks to our read-write things for our array. Like, I love it. So, testament to everyone, because everyone knows I don't stick with anything. I've stuck with Unraid for years because it's the best.
That's amazing.
It's funny you say that, Mike, because actually somebody in our community, when we posted about this in the forum, said the exact same thing. Said, I'm still using that reconstruct write setting from the last time I watched the show a year ago, and John brought that up. So I'm glad that it's been valuable.
I am too. Okay, any other quick tips before you go? Anything
I got to prove here. Hold on, before we go.
He's not the update. Ah, there you go.
Look how easy that was. Within the time that we gave him flack for not having it, he has back up and running, and he's good to go.
It was pretty easy.
Now I want you to go test SMB performance for me, because somebody said there was a problem with that, I think.
Can you go transfer a file real quick over SMB?
I'm the average guy, man. I don't know. I like that.
You ever need a test guy, hit me up, John. I love breaking things and then putting them back together at 3 a.m.
John, we made you late for a meeting, but let me ask you this: as you guys get close to 6-9, if we had you on and we dispensed with all the pleasantries and got right down to technical business, if we asked you to come back, would you come back and after you feel comfortable, and maybe that'd be a good future thing and we could just dive right into all the new stuff in 6-9? Would that work?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely. Anytime you guys want me on, just let me know.
Yeah. You guys offered badges, and Rob's been asking me a couple times out there for them. And I was trying to come up. We were trying to think through. There they are. We were trying to think through
case badges. I'm trying to.
Uyghur, I have one for you, by the way.
Oh yes.
Okay.
I was jealous of Bite My Bits for a long time.
I've got one for you.
Hey, these are extra special, because these are the ones that if you go to our online store, you can buy these, and these are fine. They're fine. But they're pretty thin. They're pretty paper. I don't know if you can see from the side, but these actually have a bit of a bezel to them.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually
are raised happy man right now.
Yeah.
They're like pillows. I'll bring other pillows. You can sleep on them. They're actually, I have been actually since they sent them to me. But we've been thinking of a way to give a few of those away. So here's what I want to do. Follow me on Twitter at J Collison, right? COLLISON, at J Collison. And tweet at me and Unraid your Unraid build, right? And style counts on this. So I don't know what it counts.
But the more LED lights, the better.
Yeah, just we're looking for nerd factor. So, I don't, again, I don't know what that
oldest
looks like.
hardware, newest anything though. It doesn't
could
have to
be-
be like the best. It's got to be just like cool.
Yeah, and
Nerd
maybe we're looking
factor.
for some angles, and okay. We just want to see some cool pictures of your setup. So, go jump on Twitter at Jay Collison. Make sure you get Unraid in there as well. If you do add Unraid, I think it's official. Unraid official, I think is the Twitter, and then tweet those pictures. We'll give it a week or two, and then we'll pick the best one. Mike and I will pick the best couple, and we'll let these guys know, and we'll ship them out to you. How does that sound? John, that sounds like that'll work.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, perfect. John, thank you for coming on tonight. I appreciate you and Unraid and Spencer, who spent some time doing some great work for us. So Spencer, we appreciate you as well. We'll let you head out. It sounded like that 9:00 meeting was pretty important. So we'll.
Yeah, I got a message from Eric while we were chatting, saying, "Are we skipping this call tonight?" Or what's going on? I said, "Guys, you start without me. I'll be right there."
Just tell them a bunch of podcasters we're keeping you busy.
That's
so,
right.
John, thanks for jumping in. Appreciate you having here tonight. If you're in the chat room or you're listening live, stay around. We have still a little bit of show to go. But John, thanks for jumping in. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, John. See ya.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, pretty great, right?
Dude,
Jump in here,
man. And it's a good thing I don't have that guy's phone number because I would bother him all the time. I could nerd out with that guy on Unraid for hours.
Oh, yeah.
That is so much fun.
Yeah, you're welcome, Spencer. Thanks. I can't say enough. Spencer did the best promotion job for this I've ever seen. I mean, maybe not as good as a Tony Rayner promotion job. I mean,
I always point the wrong way. There we go.
Rayner is on it all the time. Tony, what do you think? Give us some feedback on what you heard tonight.
Yeah. Mike, since you're a user and it kind of came up in the chat, so pretty much you load it on the USB drive, then it runs from RAM.
It does. So it loads all that into RAM. Really, the only time you're going to be accessing your the flash drive is when you're making system-wide changes, or if you're like loading a plugin, for example, because like plugins store on the flash. But really, that's the only time. So it's not you. I have a cheap. I shouldn't probably have this, but I mean, I have a pretty cheap USB stick that's running in there for years because the only time it's ever loaded is at boot and during any of those big changes. So it's not hitting that USB drive very often, if at all.
So I guess, like, say, what size USB drive does it require, or any certain?
Oh man, pretty small. So on mine, I have an 8 gigabyte on there. I'm only using 592 megabytes.
Okay.
So, and that is with, I mean, I have a pretty loaded system. I have a lot of plugins.
Doesn't even need to be that fast.
No, you could do a USB. You could have a 1 gig and probably be fine. I don't know what they recommend. So this is not a official Unraid comment, but I mean, I use 592 megabytes and it only loads every so often. I think the only time you're ever going to even see the speed is maybe on boot. But even there, like, how often are you rebooting your Unraid server?
I had mine before I rebooted it. It had been a month. And, and I think Howard back in the day when we were talking about this, I think he had like 600 days on his Unraid server or something like that. I mean, it was something ridiculous. And,
you barely ever need to reboot it. So no requirements there.
Pretty low requirements. Go ahead.
Because after the last podcast, Mike Howard and you like, man, I have a Nook sitting there.
Yeah.
A bunch of old discs, most of them dying, WD green drives, of course.
Yeah.
This would be kind of a perfect setup, just to give it a try.
It totally is.
Because I do have a QNAP NAS, but, I just really don't use it. Something new to mess with.
But even there, like, it's perfect for the home user who has a bunch of just random drives around, because the biggest advantage, right, is that the whole array doesn't need to be the same size drives. Make sure your biggest drive you have available is your parity drive. Other than that, throw anything and everything in there. That again, all this is not officially Unraid sponsored, but why not? Like, throw everything in there.
Your experience, right?
In my experience, I have all sorts of drives in there, ranging from 500 gigs to 4 terabytes.
Yeah. Joe says he's using a Cruiser Fit 16
I highly recommend those.
I think I'm using a one of those companies. I was on the tip.
These little SanDisks that barely even stick out the back. You don't even notice, because what I have noticed is if I ever do need to move the server, I don't want something big sticking out if you don't have an internal drive. So these don't get broken off if you don't know it's back there and you go to move the thing.
Yeah. Mark's using an 8 gig. It says it's using
725. Interesting. I
725
really wondered
right
what
now.
takes up space on these. I'm guessing plugins, but interesting.
They do have some requirements for the license. I can't imagine that would be very big, but Nathaniel says that. By the way, Nathaniel will be on the show here in a couple weeks. We're going to, I think here in 4 weeks at the end of the month, we're going to talk a little bit about how education has changed around its technology in a response to this COVID, right? And so Nathaniel's coming on, Brian Freelander is back, and then Chris Nessie is coming on. So that'll be here end of August. If you go to theaverageguy.tv and click on the calendar tab, actually that one's not listed today. I'll be putting it on this weekend. But if you want to see all the upcoming show, those are coming up.
And then licenses, their pricing scheme is based off how many drives you have in your box. And I think the license is tied to your USB drive.
It's 6. Here, I'll show that really quick again.
Not tied to it. It's included in the config for it.
Basic gets you the $60 package one time, right? $60 gets you up to 6, and then the $90 is up to 12, and then unlimited is $130. And
they have not, unlike other products, that's it. They don't charge you again for the next big release. Like if you go from 5 to 6, nothing. That is a one, at least as far as they've done it, a one-time thing. So I think what he was saying is, they might change their pricing structure, but at least even if they change that, let's say even if they charge for the 7 release, they're not going to remove functionality from what you've already paid for. You might not get anything new, but they haven't removed it.
Nathaniel says your USB drive must contain a unique GUID and then be a minimum of 1 gig in size and a maximum of 32 gig.
Interesting. And I don't know of any mainstream hubs that don't have a GUID.
It was super easy. Like this second time around when I went to go do it, was super. In fact, here in the community, by the way, if you're joining us for the first time and you want to join our discussion around Unraid, we have one of those as well. Head out to theaverageguy.tv/discord and jump in there. There's a lot of other stuff as well. We talk about distributed computing. We talk about cigars. That's my favorite topic. Hardware, some of that stuff. So if you want to jump in there, again, a really nice group. We don't really tolerate trolls. They're gone pretty fast. So theaverageguy.tv/discord will get you in there. Tony, you haven't joined us in the Discord group, have you? Or are you in there?
I was there for a moment, but I'll kind of look through Facebook a little more than even Discord.
Yeah. Well, we have a Facebook group as well. theaverageguy.tv/Facebook. If you want to join us, that group's out there as well. It works just fine. And then of course we were talking on Twitter earlier. I think we've got a really good group of folks that just it's a normal amount of traffic and it's just good stuff. So if you want to join us out there on Twitter, you can do that as well. Tony, any other thoughts from you on Unraid or on the interview tonight?
No, that I'll assume that when you go to run from the USB stick, as far as you have to do an install initially, or just placing it on there like on a Pi. Do you have to do an install routine, or is it just already there?
Jim, you just did it recently.
Yeah, you get a couple options to do it. It'll ask you if you just want to run it or if you want to install it. And I just did I can't even remember whatever I did. When it reboots, it just fires up.
Yeah. So the main install process, I think, is pretty much done with the application you use on your, let's say your Windows machine to build the USB driver. They have their own tool. You download it, you plug in your thing, and it flashes that with the actual. That's
super easy,
right? Because that's the same exact reason why I pulled it out of the Unraid box, plugged it in here. The files are all there. I just deleted the 2 configs, pulled it back out, plugged it in. And it's just good. So everything there's no really install process once you get it booted, besides setting up, your account and things like that. So there's a setup process. I wouldn't say there's an install process.
Okay. Now, can you access it off your network?
Access what?
Access the actual box and storage off your network?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Well, I should clarify. In certain respects. So if you're talking about can I access the shares from outside via a VPN, yes. There's really no, as far as I know, there's no native way to make it accessible outside. It's not like you're not going to have the I can think of like QNAP or Unraid or Synology. Like they don't have the connect to external option to come in. You have to connect via VPN, or what I've done is I've just installed Nextcloud. So I run Nextcloud on my Unraid box, and that's how I access those files from anywhere.
Now, does it mount easily on the network so you can see it from within your Windows PC, the shares?
Yep, all the shares are super easy. You enable SMB, all the permissions are there, really easy. So all my drives, all my shares are mapped to this PC that I'm on right now.
Easy to create shares. I mean, I did.
Super easy to create shares. Yeah,
I was like, all right, just messing around with it. That one works.
That is the one thing I would say. They're adding pools, which is cool. I hope it doesn't complicate things because, like, if you run FreeNAS, for example, like when I ran FreeNAS, it was very confusing. Like, okay. It was confusing for a very, very new user who's never worked with it. Okay, I need to create a pool, then a share, and then like I didn't know how to do it. The one thing about Unraid right now is it's super easy because like just create a share. It just uses all the drives. You're good. It uses the array, and the array is backed up. You're fine. So it's really easy now because there aren't any pools. So I'll be very intrigued. That was really cool to hear him kind of sneak peek that for us because I'll be intrigued about how well that works.
Yeah, because one of the reasons I hadn't moved to it because I have a box with a bunch of disparate drives, with a drive pool.
yeah, just a JBOD with drive pool, and it works. That Stalebit stuff works great.
Yeah. All right, you guys good? Sorry.
Yeah.
I interrupted you like 4 times. My bad. SPX said, can we just acknowledge how easily Unraid picks up errors within hard drives? Best early warning system ever. And I actually, let me show this again. I actually had that happen here. And so let's see, where is it? I think maybe it's on the main page.
It should be on the main. Should be a yellow thumbs up.
Yeah, right there we go. So I've got it's picking up a problem here with the flash drive that I have in there. And it found an error on my SSD drive as well. And so John said he'd be curious to hear more about that. And SPX said, haha, me too. I really want to know what causes those errors. Now I didn't do anything. I'm running it with errors on there, but it is pretty good at picking up and finding errors. That's for sure.
It is. Yeah. I actually just replaced my, we actually talked a few weeks back. I've been running that same 4 terabyte drive from, I don't know how many years ago, 7 years ago. It's been in a server, and it finally threw up an error, but Unraid let me know, and I got it replaced. It was my parity drive. So super easy. It just rebuilt the parity. Talk about, that's just a super seamless process too. As a drive dies, very easy to replace. A drive, even if it were to fully fail, which it hadn't yet because early detection had gone off on Unraid to let me know that, hey, this thing's going down. You need to get this replaced.
All right. I think with that, we'll wrap it. Don't forget that if you want to get one of those handy badges, it's sitting in a dresser and I can't get to it. But if you want to get one of those, jump on Twitter at Jay Collison. That's me. Make sure you include me and the Unraid account. I think it's official Unraid. Something like that, and show us your setup, your Unraid setup. However you want to do that, be creative. Or I'm going to take the 3 or 4 or 5 most creative setups, and then we'll get those over to John, and they'll get those mailed out to you as well. I'll contact you via. So make sure you follow me. I'll follow you, and we'll contact you via Twitter. Tony, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. I appreciate that. No, just good to have you. Good to have you here. Anything new in your world that people might want to hear about?
There's a lot going in our world. A lot of people may not know. I work in healthcare. I work in a hospital, and I know it's frustrating to be at home and the kids and so forth. But it's just more than you realize. You see the stories out of other countries and. Follow a lot of the medical literature, and it really is in some ways, just a new disease. Yeah. First we thought, this is what it was doing to the body and this is how to treat it. And now they're saying another way and now another way. And we just know the only way to kind of really keep things under control is you have to stay at home and good hygiene and so forth. Because literally one of the scary things, and I've had it happen to me, is a person who he was doing well, few hours later on the ventilator. And, at first they thought it was an old people's disease. And now they're finding that, it more so still is. It's pretty interesting that Corona, one of the biggest risk factors is male sex by far. High blood pressure, where in some ways you think it'd be lung disease, but that was one of the somewhat more minor. It's still in the top 5, mind you, but like blood pressure, heart disease, and they're looking at a few, ways in which that might matter. But like I said, it's trying to keep people well, because there are a lot of facilities where providers are dying. I mean, they literally, another one today up in New York, a critical care doctor, that was treating people, he died. People having to ration protective gear, because I don't know if that data is still current, but that if you have a person who is critically ill from Corona, that the one figure I'd read, that the person doing the intubation or putting the breathing tube in to put you on the ventilator, there's an 8% chance that they become infected because of the procedure.
Mm-hmm.
And like saying, it's like luggage, man. Once you got it, you don't get rid of it. And there is.
Oh my gosh.
Treatment, so it does seem to be overkill. But as I say, once people are ill and die, you can't make them undead.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, so to protect you and your loved ones and everything else, hashtag flatten the curve.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping if you're listening to this and it's maybe 6 months from now or a year from now, I'm hoping we can say we've learned a whole bunch about it and we're doing better and everything. We're making some semblance of getting things back to order. And so appreciate that. Tony, thanks for coming out. We'll do some post show. If you're new to us, we do a little bit of post show where it's kind of anything goes. So hang tight if you want to stay around. Just a couple things kind of on your way out. Don't forget, if you want to financially support the show in any way, we do have a Patreon account. If you want to follow us out there, theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. We got a monthly $5 plan if you want to jump on that. That just kind of helps do the things that we do around here. So we appreciate that. It actually helps pay for the mobile app as well that we have available. So we appreciate those. And I think I have 23 or 25 supporters out there now. Appreciate you guys and the work that you do as well. We mentioned the Discord group and the Facebook group. If you want to send me an email, you can do that, jim@theaverageguy.tv. Don't forget the Twitter handle of @JCollison to get one of those handy badges. Don't forget the Average Guide to TV platform is powered by Maple Grove Partners. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting that you know and you trust. Of course, that's Christian, long-time guy here in the community, and we like what's going on over at Maple Grove Partners. You can get both web and media hosting. He basically does just about anything. Plans start as little as $10 a site, and we'd appreciate it if you're thinking about doing something like that. Head out and check it out, maplegrovepartners.com. Thanks for coming out and joining us tonight. Again, we are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern. You got some extra time on your hands. Come out and join us. You can always listen to the recording or find us by searching Home Gadget Geeks in any podcast app. And we'd love to have you as part of the community. So with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody. All right, friends, for the new ones, we lost quite a few as soon as John left. But if you're staying around and hanging out with us for the very first time, welcome. We are glad. There's actually a bunch of you. Normally, we do about 10 to 12 for a live show, and tonight we got up to about 35, which is pretty great. And then we're hanging in the 20s right now. So if you're hanging out and you just want to do that, we'll be hanging out in the chat room here for a few minutes just in post show, unless you guys got to go.
Man, the worst thing is they're making us shave off facial hair.
It's kind of military style in some ways, right? We could never have facial hair in the military. It's kind of got me thinking, like, maybe I'll drop the beard during this time, and just cause it makes it easier to get the mask on, and so now I have not been going out like the first 2 weeks of this. So we're in week 4, right? First 2 weeks, I kind of cheated a lot. I was going out, I was doing the shopping, I was finding reasons to go out shopping and stuff like that. Then Sarah started doing the shopping. Sarah's my wife. And I have really not gone anywhere. But I do have I don't have an official thing, but I've got like, a bandana that I can use if I need to. I'm going into public. But
yeah, not very much protection.
Well, it's better than nothing. It's better than nothing. I don't have access,
is it?
I don't have access to anything. Like I don't
either. That's the thing.
Yeah, and that's why I'm staying in.
I go like this, and I'm like, I don't think that's helping.
No, the key is like all the things that they're saying, right? Stay as far away from people and some of those kinds of things, right? You can mitigate this down to it. So, but I'm not, Tony, I'm not going out. I'm not helping the public in that thing. I'm not. In fact, I'm not sure I've been anywhere in public in a couple weeks now, like where I've been rubbing shoulders with people. So,
and my thing is, I would be not contracting. I mean, Hannah works at the hospital, right? She's coming home every day. I would probably be the one giving it, not receiving it. So me wearing a mask is more about preventing other people. If I'm going to get it, I'm going to get it from her coming home from the hospital every day.
Yeah.
Right.
Joe says, I have to say, pretty rough to see people not taking it seriously enough, especially those that are most at risk. And John doing his own haircut tomorrow. See, that's even bolder. I can't. Tony, you cutting your own hair at this point? Is it just?
I can't remember the last time I had it cut. It's just.
Yeah, well, I'm not. I'm going to grow
I'm
it
wearing
out.
the hat this week, and I will be wearing a hat every week for the next how many years?
I'm growing it out, man. I'm going to see until we go back to work. I don't know how this thing will end, but I am definitely. So, John, good luck. I want to see some before. I want to see some before and after pictures, John, for sure. Mark said he found some masks in his garage. I thought I had some too, but I didn't. Some deliveries taking some time, so it's crazy times. It's
when the doctor says, "Hey, he's a travel doc," and he goes, "Is all the haircut places around here closed?" And I'm like, "Really?" Like I would know.
Yeah, for me, actually, the bad part's the hair on the back of my neck. That just kind of gets unmanageable.
And my sideburns and all my hair on my ears.
Well, with the beard, I've got trimmers. Ooh, in fact, those stopped working this morning. I need to plug them in, but I can kind of feather it up in here and I'll be good for a while. But this is going to definitely get.
And you made it the whole show without talking about the Tiger King.
Thank God. Why did you bring that up?
Best show ever.
Oh God.
Hate that
Talking
guy.
about hair, man.
Hate that guy.
Oh, I watched it. I felt like a lesser person after watching that series.
The way you have to watch is you have to crank through in one night. We watched the entire thing in one night because otherwise you're like, I can't devote more than like 2 days to this. So yeah.
Well, I reading the thing today. They said they thought the guy in Myrtle Beach is worth like $10 million.
I hate that guy. Mark says his wife wants to cut his. I'm scared. John's going to get some. He says he's going to get some pictures, maybe in our Discord group. Definitely want to see those before and after, John, for sure. He's got the right idea. Everyone goes back to work with a mullet. How great would that be?
It'd be awesome.
Andrew says he's asked his daughter to cut his. John says he got the Remington that was recommended by Wirecutter. I got a little Norelco, $16 on Amazon. I bought this a couple of years ago when I was first growing the beard. It's got a 357 guide plus the trimmer and the ear and nose thing. It's like $16. So it's been I've used the heck out of the thing. It ran out of juice this morning when I was using it.
I wish I knew what one.
It's just done. Yeah.
I wish I knew which one I use. Mine has like this dial and it like raises or lowers the head on it. So like 0 through 10 is one head and you just change the dial and then you swap heads and then 12 through 20 is like the next, but you can get the finest little adjustments. So my wife uses it to like cut the boy's hair because she'll crank it all the way up to like 20. And then when I do my facial hair, I crank it down to like 4. It works really, really well. And also very cheap. I want to say $30 at Target for that. I think it's also a Norelco. I could be wrong.
Tony, what do you use a guard then? What's your guard?
So that's the running joke. In the summer, it's a 1. In the winter, it's a 2.
Got to get extra little,
big difference, my friend.
Yeah.
Andrew says, when's the Flowbee coming back? The Flowbee's a good concept, man. I mean, that's a good concept. I mean, that way you don't have hair going all over the place. I was a big Flowbee fan. I wouldn't want to get my hair cut with one, but it'll be interesting to see when those open back up. I'm kind of hoping here in June, but that's 2 months away. I'm thinking, what's my hair going to look like in 2 months? I may cut it all off. I may by that time just get tired of it. Just take it down to take it. Oh, it kills me. When I was in the Army, we during the first Gulf War, we got deployed to the National Training Center in Fort Irwin down in Southern California, and it was kind of a quick deployment. So they kind of let us know on Friday, and we rolled out on Monday, and like, oh, by the way, you're going to be gone for 4 months. Like, it was that kind of deployment. So no time to really. We worked all weekend and then headed down to the National Training Center. We were at war, right? So that's what you do when you're in the military. So we got down there, and we were there for about a week, and the first sergeant pulled us all in, and we got an inspection for haircuts, and he started pulling people out, and he's like, I can cut you, we can cut it all off, or you can let me try to cut it and make it look good. And I'm like, well, I mean, do your best. And so he took that thing, and oh my God, he just butchered my head, just butchered it. I think he kind of did it on purpose. And and then I had to kind of live with that for the next month until we came back for a short Christmas break, where I could get to the barber and get a cut. So when I went to the barber, he was like, I sat down in the chair. He goes, "Oh my God, what happened to you?" Well,
I'm in the military.
Well, it was at a military barbershop, but they're kind of used to. We get our hair cut almost every week. You know, you go in, it was a $3 cut. You know. And it was literally 6 minutes, like, you know,
same thing for everyone.
Same thing every time. Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, he could tell from, you know, he was like, oh my God. I just remember him saying that. Oh my God, what happened to you? Like, just cut it. It's a long story. Just cut it. So since that time, I have been super afraid of anybody, you know, any rookies, any non-essential people cutting my hair. John says, yeah, he figures, see, this is the problem. He says, yeah, it figures if I mess it up, it'll all grow back before the quarantine is over. See, I can't look at myself in the mirror when it's messed up like that. I get super self-conscious. Mark says he gets his cut every 5 weeks. It grows fast. Buzz cut will be the last one, maybe 10. I'm a 3-weeker. Tony, how often do you cut your own then?
Trying to think how many months.
Really? You can go that long in between haircuts?
Oh, yeah, definitely a month or two easy.
Wow, okay. All right.
It's more like, say, around the ears and the neck, like you said.
Yeah.
Because I get it pretty much scalped when I do.
John says it's usually every 6 weeks. Wow, I couldn't. Wow, it's okay. Yeah, maybe I go too often. Justin says every 4. I'm a 3. Okay, but here's the deal. Like, my haircut is the one place I splurge. So it's kind of an experience. And I'm trying to talk him into serving bourbon there. Like, you know, at the salon I go to. Yeah. They don't have a liquor license, so that'd be tough. But I keep talking about it.
Go to Scissors and Scotch.
Yeah, no, but I want this place because I
really this place to do it. Yeah.
Place. So it's a really good experience, and I pay way too much, but so I go every 3, and I probably don't need to, but it's a great experience.
I'm every 2 weeks.
Michael Delaney says once a year. Can you really do that?
I got to see that head of lettuce.
I want to see, Michael, I want to see a shot right before you get it cut, and then what it looks like afterwards. You can't really be once a year. Uyghur, what are you going on right now? Are you about 4 weeks?
Oh,
5?
5.
Okay.
Yeah. Going on 5. And I usually do every 2. It's rough.
You go every 2?
Yeah.
Oh, nicely done. Okay. I don't feel so bad.
Yeah.
I don't feel so bad.
I do sport clips though, so it's super cheap.
Yeah. And that's probably the way. It's probably the way. If I was going to get it cut that often, it'd probably be. Well, it'll be interesting to see how this, and Tony, there was, you know, I was reading something, Washington Post or something, about they're opening things back up in Wuhan. Is that how you pronounce it in China? Wuhan?
I think so.
Wuhan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well,
so.
Yeah. And some of the thing is, how truthful have they been on their cases, and even their old cases, their new cases, their reinfection rates and so forth. So
yeah.
That's what they're worried about, is, if things kind of lighten up, people get back out, then you get your second wave,
Justin says his does serve beer, scotch, and bourbon. And then, yes, Mark is right. You could drink at mine, but I have to drive home afterwards. And that is true. Yeah, I'd heard there were long lines and, things were not as smooth as when things were, and I say all that to say, when things do open up again, how will that work? I just kind of wonder. My favorite bar and grill DJs here in town. We love DJs, and the Bellevue location is their biggest one. They gutted the place and have been painting it and replacing the carpet, and they kind of use this time to kind of refurb the whole place.
Pretty smart.
Yeah,
because if you're going to take that hit in revenue eventually,
might as well
bump up that project a little bit, right?
Probably easier to find little labor these days, and maybe get it a little cheaper.
Yeah, did you listen to the latest Home Tech podcast? They had the guy, Jason works for One Vision Resources.
Okay.
And they had I guess he's kind of like an HR guy on it. He talked a lot about the government programs for small business and individuals, how to get a paycheck and help, float your company during all this time. It was a great podcast.
Okay.
500 and less employees, most of the programs he talked about, but it's a very informative podcast.
Yeah. I've heard that program's got some interesting like strings attached, but I haven't dug in. That's great. She should be on the show. She didn't even hesitate. That's pretty great. This week, Sammy, my daughter, wrote an article about our time, her and I, our time together in kind of in quarantine. And
how much did you cry? I would cry if my daughter wrote me an article like that.
I haven't read it yet.
Okay, well,
she just told me about it.
Bring the tissues.
I am going to post it to the averageguy.tv. So when she's ready for it, I thought it'd be good. And I may actually ask for audience participation in that. In other words, like, what'd you learn during this time? We are definitely, okay, I don't know this for sure, but I'm going to say it anyways. We are definitely not going to see a time like this again in our lives. I mean, I don't think so. I think this is kind of a one-time event. This may go longer than what we're thinking, but I think as we get through this, I don't think we're going to see something like this again.
No, and I'll just say one quick thing. So I've kind of had almost like come to Jesus moment here over this last few weeks, because I was a really good 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. when they went to bed dad. Like, I had that down. I was super good. I could come home, turn it on for 2 hours and be good. And then the weekends are the weekends. But I've had to be a 6 a.m. to 5 essentially, because then Hannah gets home and she's been really good at when she gets home, she takes them because she knows I've had a day. But 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. dad. And it's been a change. I've had to really change my whole perspective on being a dad. I've had to have patience, and I have learned, I have developed the coolest relationship with my kids. I told Hannah, I'm like, it makes me almost feel bad because I have just now developed a really cool relationship with my 3-year-old and 2-year-old that I didn't have before. And she's like, don't feel bad. It's just time. Like, you've all of a sudden just had a bunch of time with them. But we have like a routine now, because they know I'm trying to work and be a dad. Like, they understand it. They get it. Like, when they come down and my AirPods are in, they know I'm going to call it. My 3-year-old's like, Dad, I need food. Like, he whispers it, like, instead of yelling it. He'll come down, peek around the corner, so it's the coolest time. I know that's tragedy right now. I know it's a pandemic and it's really sad, but there are some really cool things that have come out of this, I will say. And I love it was like a silver lining. And for me, it's been just like, me as a dad, I have changed. And my wife even said, she goes, I did not know how you were going to deal with this. And she goes, you've really surprised me. And then I surprised myself. I did not know how I was going to deal with this. I was very used to only being a dad. I say that in a weird way. It's not true, but I would come home from work, right? And then they go to bed at 7:30 for those 2 hours every Monday through Friday. And then the weekends, I'm like, that's good. I can do that. This is a whole new game.
My wife and I have both been talking, as hard as it is, but we have seen more people walking in our neighborhood.
Yes.
Our neighbor down the street, the kids go, hey, that's Daddy's girlfriend sending desserts,
Daddy's girlfriend.
At the same time.
Yeah, I agree. We see so many people out on walks, and it's the 6 feet away wave, and everyone's so nice now. I've met more neighbors now during quarantine remotely across the driveway, but I've met more of them than I ever have before.
It's kind of these kinds of things always bring people together.
They do.
It doesn't last long. When things go back to normal, it doesn't last long, unfortunately. You kind of need a crisis to do those kinds of things. But I think it would be interesting to document and write down, like, what did this mean to us? Like, there's some documentation from the 1919 epidemic, but not a lot. They were just, it was so much worse for them in a lot of ways. They didn't have all the technology. I mean, think about how for us, like quarantine, we still have everything.
Yeah.
This is my ideal life.
Well, they said, your great grandparents went to war, and you're asked to sit home on the couch and watch Netflix. You got this.
Yeah.
Right. No, right. They during that was the First World War, and like, I mean, just think about how hard life was for them.
Yeah. And you're home with no air conditioning, no electronics.
No, food is terrible. Like, getting food was hard. And like, I mean, it's just in here we are. I've really tried not to complain at all. In fact, Mike, to your point, I've tried to appreciate those things. Here I've gotten these 4 weeks with my daughter that I never get. I'm probably never going to get again.
Ever. Yeah.
And so I'm taking advantage of every second. We walk every afternoon for an hour, and we don't talk. It's not like it's constant talking, but they've been significant, and we've discovered some things about each other, and it's been good. So, I kind of like it. Is she hanging out by her? Get her. Get him
this
over.
is the tech guy right here.
Nice.
Could have had him on the show.
Oh, man.
What's his first name?
Jackson.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of funny today. The kids, they're doing Microsoft Teams and chatting, with the school and so forth, and doing the homework. And I think he's getting a little frustrated because he was trying to tell his teacher how to do the video chat. She wasn't getting it right.
Yeah.
I'm having a bunch of Jim. I'm wanting to ship all my coworkers ATR microphones. I'm like, can you just please take a microphone? Because your audio sounds like hot garbage right now.
It's a dumpster fire. You're like, come on. And people jump in with just their laptop mic, and you're like, no. Stop.
Like, why is there an echo? Why are you wearing headphones? No. There you go.
That's what they talk about, all the distance learning. How I know for our state anyway, there's no standardized testing for the end of the year.
Yeah.
You think how many of these kids may not have internet at home, or no parent probably left alone, honestly.
Yeah.
Schoolwork. I mean, it's a big deal. We're fortunate, you can stay home with the kids. My wife, I work 7 on, 7 off, so it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah. Well, I can't complain. I have zero complaints. I am working out more, doing these micro workouts, where I work out 5 minutes at a time. I'm getting more duration during those than I would ever at work.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody thinks that's crazy. Like, if I got down in my office and started doing push-ups on my office floor, people would think that was freaking weird. I do it back here. Like, nobody cares.
No one's judging you.
No, I do. I have a pull-up bar right there. I can like 4 weeks ago, I could barely do a pull-up. Today I can do 3 solid, bringing it up. Well, for me, that's good news, right? I mean, that's I'm really trying to take advantage of what the curveball this thing has thrown me a little bit. It also has caused me to go through the whole budget and be like, okay, what is only essential? And we've had to make some hard decisions. I'm kind of hoping my pay is tied a little bit to revenue. So with revenue down, of course, my pay is going to go down a little bit. So I'm reacting or responding to that. Sarah's in the same boat. She works hourly, and less business means less hours. So that our pay will go down a little bit. What I'm kind of hoping is we'll get lean enough that as soon as this opens back up, I'll take that extra, and then I can take that extra money, put it right in the market. And I'm, still hoping it's as cheap then.
Mike, I don't know about your wife. I received a letter from the CEO of the hospital today. I know a lot of people not working now because the patient load is down dramatically, and they talk about how this is going to be a huge, decrease in revenue for the hospital. And that's, obviously not just our hospital,
right?
But, how that will change things for a lot of people, including how many businesses say, well, we've done pretty good working from home. Do we keep doing that? Or so?
Yep. Yeah. It will just shift the economy in some ways where if we do stay home more, then that has a whole different set of ramifications on things like toilet paper, which matter, right? If you're at home more and you're using it more, you're going to use more, right?
Yeah.
And so there'll be a huge shift. Maybe Peloton will sell more bikes because people will be home. They won't go to the gym, so to speak. Gyms, it'll be interesting to see if gyms can survive. Like, people are afraid to be in those things. And it'll take more than just somebody saying, okay, let's go back to it. I mean, there's a fundamental trust problem people have.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've been working on my garden too. That's been pretty great to, just take a little bit of extra time, and, weed this or take that out or plant that just in little increments, not a big, not like, okay, I'm working on it now, but just kind of little bit of increments. If you joined us live tonight, thanks for coming out. We appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming up on the 2-hour mark. So I think I've held everybody long enough. Thanks for coming out here and being a part of it. Hopefully, if you're new, you come back next week. We'll hope to see you next week. We do this every Thursday. In fact, I didn't talk about it, but next week is actually, if you go to theaverageguy.tv and you click on calendar, it'll tell me I never have to pull up that spreadsheet anymore. So, assuming it gets there, next week's Mark Robson's coming on, big barbecue show. So we'll be talking grills and barbecues and food. And so if you want to come back and join us, you're welcome to. We'll see you guys next week. You guys hang tight. We'll see you guys.